In today's video, I want to talk about how I avoid wasting time while juggling content creation and a full-time job. When I first started out, I'd waste hours writing things nobody would read and could barely manage a couple tweets a day. Now, I'm cranking out a weekly newsletter, a weekly YouTube video, a couple tweets a day, the occasional thread. All that's not to mention the networking, the researching, the dog walking, the graphic designing, the music writing, performing, rehearsing. The point is, it's a lot. Bye, social life. Somehow, I found a way to do all this while working full-time. But before I go into how I do that, there is a catch. I don't work a 9 to 5. I'm a server/bartender, usually working afternoon or night shifts. This means my mornings are wide open and I've built my life around it. If you're thinking to yourself, see, I could do it too if I had my mornings open, I'm too drained after work, then just stick with me. Some of my strategies for time management might be able to help. There are two types of people, time managers and time creators. Time managers cram as much work as possible into every spare moment because they know time is limited. They schedule tasks hour by hour and never miss a deadline. Time managers kick ass and take names, at least for a little while. A bad night's sleep causes their scheduled writing session to get pushed back. Rain rolls in and dampens the plans for an outdoor filming session. Quickly, things start to unravel as the time manager's perfectly scheduled world starts to crumble under the weight of entropy. Stressed, overwhelmed, and anxious, the time manager loses control. The guilt for failing to keep up builds until the inevitable burnout derails the entire operation. I was the time manager when I started. Time managers, while well-intentioned, are really just glorified time servants. Rigid, unflexible, and forever trying to keep up with the chaos that is life. But the second type of person I want to talk about is what changed the game for me. Time creators. Time creators aren't thinking about how much work they can cram into 1 hour. They like to up the ante and take the game one level higher. They constantly think, how can I spend 1 hour today to create 100 tomorrow? Let me explain. If I want to create a new graphics from scratch, that might take me an hour. It can be extremely time consuming to decide on layout, elements, the font types, color palette, visual hierarchy. A time manager has to spend an hour each time they need a new graphic. They'll get faster as they get better, but that'll only save so much time. A time creator does things differently. Once they've settled on a design, they'll save it as a template. Next time they need a graphic, the choices are constrained. The color palette is already chosen. The layouts, elements, and hierarchy remain consistent. Fonts are predetermined with guidelines on sizing. This allows them to just change the contents within the graphics and save hours of diddling around in Illustrator. If they make 100 graphics from this template, they've created 100 hours to spend on other tasks. And if the time creator wants to get next level with it, they can now delegate this templated work to a contractor or employee. That's the key mindset shift here. If you're gonna do something twice, systemize it. Whenever I do something, I ask myself, how can I spend a little more time right now to create more time in the future? But that's not the only strategy that's created more time for me. I call this method the baker's method. The biggest game changer for me was when I started viewing my weekly newsletter as a freshly baked baguette. Yes, a steamy loaf of deliciousness. It's long, it's crispy, and full of flavor. To turn that loaf of bread into a foot-long sandwich, I just need to add meat and cheese. That foot-long sandwich is the YouTube video. I film myself reading the newsletter as my script, then I add the meat, the B-roll, and the cheese, music, graphics, effects. I already baked the loaf, I'm just adding the toppings. For Twitter, it's the opposite process. I take that fresh loaf and slice it up into pieces. Those pieces are what I post as tweets and threads. So instead of viewing the 4 content pieces I post regularly as separate things, they become one. And as long as I bake one fresh loaf every week, the bakery stays afloat. This approach has saved countless hours. Hopefully you can now see the difference between time management and time creation. Systemize the repeatable things to create more time. Leverage everything you create to get more out of less. It's a lethal combo of productive creativity. Now let's get into how I actually manage my schedule while working full-time and some strategies you can incorporate too. Just keep in mind that these two concepts are central to all my decision making. So this is the schedule. This is my typical work day. 6 to 8 a.m., I'll wake up, drink some coffee, do some writing and some creative work. From 8 to 9 a.m., I'm usually walking the dog. From 9 to 11 a.m., I'm usually doing productive work. And from 11 to 2 p.m., I'll do things like work out, eat, go on social media, and whatever other task I need to do. At 2:30, I usually go off to the soul-crushing job, which is actually kind of fun sometimes. And notice this image can be posted to Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, as is. This is a rough schedule that loosely describes an average working day for me. And yes, you read that correctly. I'm a bartender who wakes up at 6 a.m. to write and do creative work. But when you want more out of life, you do what it takes. And don't worry, I'm still a human. I sleep in when I need it, and I have bad days just like anyone else. But I do have one hard and fast rule. Creative work, first thing in the morning. Always with coffee. The world is distracting, the day demoralizing. I take advantage of the quiet hours and a fresh mind to do the most important work, writing. If my whole system is based on writing a newsletter every week, then it's crucial I prioritize that time. Everything else could slip through the cracks, and so long as I get that 1 to 2 hours of space in the morning, I would be fine. So now I want to talk about time blocking versus time scheduling. I don't schedule all my tasks hour by hour on Google Calendar. That would drive me insane. It leaves little room for spontaneity, unexpected mishaps, or a foggy mind from a poor night's rest. But for some people, it works because it allows them to clearly visualize how much time each task requires. To each their own. I much prefer time blocking. I like to block out 2 hours in the morning and do the creative stuff. Block out another 2 hours and do the productive work. Squeeze a dog walking break in between and I'm good to go. And you may be asking, what does he mean by productive work? It's all the stuff that needs to get done, but it doesn't require my peak energy state to get it done. That's stuff like editing videos, weekly reviews, outlining projects, responding to emails, working on my systems, creating graphics for a video. And for those of you working a 9 to 5, this is how I would structure my day if I was in that situation. I would still wake up and write, then I would go to work, and then I would just do all the productive work afterwards. And if you're still sitting here thinking, I just don't have the time or energy to do anything after work, then I would say it's all the more reason you should be looking to get out of that job. If it's that draining, change is needed. Bartending doesn't drain me. It's easy for me. Sometimes it's even energizing because of all the social engagement. It takes nothing from me other than time I'd rather be playing music, making videos, and writing. Maybe a little bit of my pride too, but that's another story. I have one final rule I stick to, sometimes unsuccessfully. Social media comes last. This is because it's so damn easy to lose focus and I end up scrolling more than I meant to. You're shooting yourself in the foot if you're hopping on social media before you've completed your creative work. Do the important stuff before distractions even have a chance to derail your plans. So here's what a weekly pipeline looks like for me. Every week, I bake one new loaf of newsletter. The next week, I turn that loaf into a YouTube sandwich. That means I write a newsletter each week and simultaneously make a video based on the previous week's newsletter. Here's how it looks on a day-by-day basis. On Tuesday, I'll publish the video in the newsletter. It's also my ideation day. On Wednesday, I'll film the talking head and I'll outline the newsletter for the next week. Thursday, I like to edit the video and then I work on the title and thumbnail packaging for the newsletter. On Friday, I keep editing the video, but this is when I work on my first draft for the newsletter. And then on Saturday, I do the final video adjustments and I start editing the newsletter. Sunday, I like to have that time off, spend it with my wife and my family and my friends, but I'll do final adjustments if I need to. Mondays are band day. That's when I spend 4 hours usually rehearsing and writing music with the band. And I'll do any final adjustments to the video or the newsletter if I need to before publishing day. All the Twitter and X stuff comes whenever I can fit it in, no particular order. It's a 5-day work week, leaving me 2 days to tie up loose ends and have somewhat of a life. And trust me, you need a life. Rest, recovery, and time spent with people you care about are incredibly recharging. If all this seems like a lot to you, welcome to the creator life. It's not really for the faint of heart or the easily distracted. It isn't the fun, carefree lifestyle social media makes it out to be. That's reserved for when you get the systems and business operations in place to make it your full-time gig. In the meantime, those of us working full-time must treat content creation like a professional if we want to make it our profession. But the truth is, I love it. None of this feels like work because I'm passionate about making it my career. Knowing that my ideas can help people find meaning and welcome more creativity in their lives gives me a greater sense of purpose. I've chosen this path for myself. Not because I thought it would make me fast cash or be the answer to all my problems, but because it's a lifestyle I love and I find a lot of meaning in pursuing. The grind is staying consistent when results aren't immediate. That's the real challenge here. But to get through that challenge, we must take the creator business seriously. Because if we don't, failure means a life of punching in and taking orders. And I don't know about you, but that life ain't for me. That's it for today. Take care, guys.